we're going to start. So they write in footnote 1 that this maimah apparently is in connection to the brachas that people bench the Rebbe for Shnas HaShishim. So this was the second maimah in the historic Farbrengen of Yud ניסן Tavshin Chav Beis. The first maimah was Achri Mois, and the second one is directly connected to Yud ניסן. God, the Gemara says, GODOL in the Amen Yosim and Ambavarech. Greater is the one who says Amen, and the one that actually makes the bracha. Teida, no, Sharei, Golyardin, Yordin, Umizgorim, Bimulchamba. So the foot soldiers go down and they literally agitate in the war, they fight the battle. They begin the battle. However, the Gibodim, Yordin, Manatzchim, but then the Gibodim, the mighty ones, that's the elite. After the initial confrontation, so then come the elite soldiers, Manatzchin, and they bring about the victory. So that's what he's saying, that the Golyarin is the bracha, but the Amen is the Gibodim that completes the victory. How is this possible that Amen should be greater than the bracha itself? Amen is shaykh bar ak lachash yeshtin in bracha dem mevarach. The whole Amen is only shaykh when there's someone makes a bracha, and then you answer Amen. Vimkein ichef shalom b'shel GODOL in Amen yosim and varach. How could we say that since the Amen is only a result and a response, and it's only shaykh, it can't exist? You don't say Amen just like that. You answer Amen to a bracha. So then, how could it be greater than the mevarech, the one who makes the bracha? Gam soich lav nakesh v'ashaychus ding in habracha when yes amen the ingen amilchama. What's the connection to a war? To making a bracha, answering amen. What's the whole connection? That shekiver should be milchama yeshnam eila shemaschil milchama. A war begins by those who start the war. That's the foot soldier. Then come the elite soldiers, the Gibodim, the mighty ones, the valiant ones, who complete the war and bring victory. So that's the parallel. So therefore, also this is also true in the bracha and the yes amen. So much so that GODOL in the amen yosim and the mevarech. What's the parallel? Because in the beginning and the end. That's the connection to a war. What's the connection to that? What's a war? How is a war connected and expressive of the inyan of a bracha and amen? Yesh lekash inyan zeh. So this is connected to what inyan? We're saying now that GODOL in the amen yosim and mevarech imay mechazal. With the Maimah Chazal Masech the Seite called Mevarech Mizbarech V'Bechasish Ala Kadosh Baruch. So anyone who blesses is blessed by the Eibishter. Moshe Kos the Eibishter told Avraham, V'Avarach Mevarachecha. And those, I will bless those who bless you. So if you bless a Yid, you get benched by the Eibishter. Yavshem Mevarech Mevarech B'Richas Basa V'Dam. So what happened here? The person gave a bracha of flesh and blood. And this is something far greater. He has the assurance and the ruling. He gets a much greater bracha. The Eibishter blesses him. And moreover, that what he adds is more than the ikr. It's a medrash. The Medrash cites several examples that the Eibishter's additional bracha is more than the primary bracha. That's the pshat over here. Pshat is not that the Eibishter's bracha is greater than the person's bracha. It's referring to Eibishter's bracha as himself, but his additional bracha is greater than the primary one. And one example is Avraham, that initially Eibishter benched him, he had Yitzchak, but then Eibishter benched him again. And with Keturah, he had 6 children. Another example is Rachel. That after Yosef, she was benched with Binyamin. Yosef had 2 sons. Binyamin had 10 sons. And she called him Yosef because she was a tefillah that Hashem should add another child. Yosef Hashem li ben Achad, and that was fulfilled in the birth of Binyamin, who had 10 sons. And other examples brought in Medrash. So not only we're getting the Eibishter's bracha, but that's in a way that Tisefes is meruba la'ikir. So this is a parallel to our subject matter at hand. There is a gam binyan habracha binyan aniyas amen. Likewise a bracha and amen. The Mefarshim starting with Rashi explain what does amen mean. Shanias amen mekayemes umametes es habracha. The amen affirms and declares the truth of the bracha. Okay, this is Zohar, like it says in Zohar, Kol bracha di'is dasivu la amen. Any bracha to which amen is responded to, so this will endure as it should be, as is appropriate. So the amen makes the bracha lasting. True. The idea of emes, of course, is that it lasts. So liya is davar shel kayama beifenitzchi. The amen makes the bracha something permanent and eternal. Hainu sha'ili shenasa de'anis amen hu. So what do we see from what we're bringing now from the Zohar and before that from the Medrash, that the Eibishter's bracha is more than the Ikar, that which began the whole process. It's a similar model to the Amen that comes after the bracha, and likewise explicitly in the Zohar that the function of the Amen is to establish the bracha and make it permanent. So the Eloi that's made by the virtue that's accomplished by Niyas Amen, it's similar to the Eloi Hashem's bracha lagabi birchas basav adam lagabi bracha of flesh and blood. So that has to be understood because it's a person answering the Amen. So he's just saying Amen. All he's doing is echoing the bracha, and yet we see the parallel that's similar to the Eibishter's bracha relative to a bracha of basav adam. So this needs to be all understood. Beis, v'yuvim behektim avu barucha behemshech chai v'adna varech mei brachas b'chol yoim. From the Rebbe Marash, famous hemshech, tavish tamat ches, shehu herchev habir, his series of Maimarim expands with the explanation on the Maimorish Ladmar Azoken, on a Maimor of the Alter Rebbe in Torah, having in a brachas, which begins with understanding in a brachas. There he says the Marash, in a klol say the ishtal shalos inyan bichos shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Holding in a ishtal shalos is the Eibishter's bracha, and explains. Sharis havus yirak mipnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu etz matov v'tevatov lahit. Quoting here from the Imek HaMelech and other primary works, that all of creation is because Hashem is the essence of good, bracha. It's the nature of good to bestow good, to do good. So all of creation is b'teiras tzedakah or bracha. It's all an act of tzedakah. He means it's tzedakah in the sense of a charitable act. Or bracha and bracha. Hashem isn't responding to any worthiness, to anything that creation is offering. It's a pure unilateral act of bestowal. That's what bracha is. Now, Hashem shebebracha says beisugim. The Chachamim were masakin 2 templates. It's called matbeya, means a form or formula in our case of brachas. Matbeya kotzer, there's the small formula. What is that? In brackets. It starts with the bracha, but doesn't conclude with the bracha, like birchas and so on. Matbeya aruch, and then there's the long formula. In brackets, it starts with the bracha and ends with the baruch. Birchas Hamazon, and so on. So having said that bracha, all of Ishtalshalos is the Ibish's bracha, and having established the two kinds of bracha, so too, in say the Ishtalshalos, there's Beisa in Yonim, Darich Anpin, Vizer Anpin. So there's Arich Anpin, which literally means big or a long face, not long as in sour, long as in big Gilui, Vizer Anpin, and small face, small Gilui. So that means, we'll soon see what it means, but that parallels the Matbeya Kotz and Matbeya Orach. B'loshen HaMedrash, like the Medrash, now in the words of the Medrash, Mavayra Inyan, the Tzimtzim Shchinosai, Ben Shnei Badei Oren. The Gemara, the Medrash there brings that a Apikoides, a heretic, Asa B'Meir, how is it that you say that Hashem's glory fills the world, and the pasuk then says that Hashem's Shechinah is between the two staves, literally, of the Oren. I will meet you there. So how would you reconcile this? So he answered quite fascinatingly. So this doesn't bring this a lot, but so this brings it with a marshal. He answered with a marshal of a concave mirror, and the opposite of concave is what? Convex. So I don't know which one does what. You'll tell me. So one of them makes you appear small, the one makes you appear bigger. No, you're looking at the mirror. Your image is in front of the mirror, and one of them contracts you, one expands you. So what's the nekuda? So actually, it's a moshel of oir. It's really a moshel of oir, and Chassidus does bring the mirror in the whole moshel of oir. It brings that two in yonim. You didn't change, but just the way you appear changes. So the Eibishter is unchanging, but here he chooses to manifest himself largely or smallly. Or being Shnei Badei Oren. But another thing the Marshal appears brings out is that it's the Chassidus brings content that Oir is Dovuk in the Moir, that the revelation is a previous Maimon, is not something else. This is him. That image, although it's only mamish an image, it itself is nothing. But what is the whole image is you. So it's not you, but it's entirely you. That's Oir. It's a Marshal for Oir. At any rate, he brings it here because the Shtalshalos works this way. Large mirrors and small mirrors. It doesn't mean a big or small mirror. It means, again, a mirror that makes the image large, or a mirror which makes the image contract. So that's what Rabbi Meir told the Apikoides. So that's the inyan here of Zer Anpin, Arich Anpin, and Zer Anpin, that Matbeya Orach, Matbeya Kotzer, Shezer Klolos Ha'inyan, the Arich Anpin, and Zer Anpin. Hashem manifesting himself in great revelation and then in contracted revelation, Zer Anpin. What does all this mean? Let's begin. Opinion Bezen, the matter is as follows. Based on the Tzemach Tzedek here, you see in footnote 15. You would have thought, just looking at the language, right? That's why I didn't spell it out. That Matbeya Kotzer, the small formula which starts with Baruch, that's Zer Anpin. Matbeya Kotzer, Godol, Orach, rather. Same language, Matbeya Orach. The long formula which starts with Baruch and ends with Baruch corresponds to the higher Gilui. It's the opposite. Is he now going to explain? The small formula, which only begins with Baruch, doesn't end with Baruch, that's Koyal Arich Anpin. That goes on Arich, the higher level. Guys, this mind better. And if you saw it, we got them here. No, however, we can feel it, Yidal Finistin in the air. He said this. No. So what's Arich Anpin? Shebedugmas Hamayin Shenevei Atipin Tipin Bulvad. So Arich Anpin is like a spring that flows drop by drop. And that's, you can explain this further, but it's already Al Derech Matbeya Kotze. This is reflective of the small formula which begins with Baruch but doesn't end with Baruch. So it's only drops. What's the maili? What's the virtue of arichanpin shemeim bav nikroim b'shem mayim chayim? There's different levels of purifying waters. The highest level is the actual spring itself, mayim chayim, which is only, for example, paraduma can only be from such water as of, and certain tumas can only be purified from mayim chayim, not a regular mikveh. So what's the mile of mayim chayim? True living waters. We're talking about a spring, or that which flows from the spring, that is always flowing. Shakayomim la'ad, as you know, if it dries up even once in 7 years, it's called mayim mechazvim, false waters, and it's not a kosher mikveh. It could be used as a stationary mikveh, but not while it's flowing. It has to be stationary. Mayim chayim can be flowing, spring, but otherwise the rainwater mikveh has got to be stationary, at the opposite properties. So what's the mile of what? Of arichanpin is on the one hand, tipping, but the other small drops, as he'll explain further. The other hand is kayomim blag shezeh intimidi. It's eternal. That's the idea of the spring. It's got to be constantly flowing. Haindo, meaning to say, inyan shalamaylim yakabala, beyond limit, forever. That's why it's called arich. Arich means long, large, but not like it says in Torah. There is two kinds of long. There's a long that starts at a starting point, but then it just continues. But now we learned that it's like the Sof, similar to it. Milo, mata. That its very beginning is orach, which means not just it's a whole series of points, and then wow, it's very long. Each point, each nekud is orach. As he goes into saying, every nekud and every drop, every expression of arich is meaning to say beyond limit. However, so the spring starts with just a small spring, it's bubbling, spring, tipping. Each one, the pnimius is oruch, but there is externally a different manifestation that occurs in evolution here. Namely, when the well descends, and is drawn into the river, actually becomes the river. The further it's drawn away from the mayon, there it is broader. So that's the inyan of what? That is the long formula. Hey, there it's oruch. Tippin. Opposite to the mayin itself, the source, which is matbeya kotzer. So he just said now that the mayin has two ends. One of it is matbeya kotzer. We call it a small formula so far because it's only drops. The end of it manifests as the nod. It's called matbeya kotzer because it's very broad. So far clear? So it's only two aspects to the mayin itself: its source and its final manifestation. Yeah. Another illustration of small formula or large formula. It's as follows. The Gemara says in Pesachim, a person should always teach his disciple using precise language. Don't overwhelm him with lots of words. Choice, precise words. So how does it begin? So it begins with what? Very brief language. This is reflective of the way whole Torah Shebal Peh works. Mishnah, and then from Mishnah becomes Gemara, from Gemara Rishonim, Achronim, like the river. It's like this expanding river from the source. As it continues to develop, it gets broader and broader. So likewise here in this motion, all of the detailed laws that come emerge later, that's the expansion, that's the other end, that's already the long formula. So they were all originally present in the Nekudas HaChochma. They were all present in the words of the Rav, expressed very briefly. That's the small formula. That's another motion. There is the klal l'prat. Another example is a klal l'prat, a formula that's just is a few words, and then there's all the details that emerge as you apply the formula. Veit kamet the Gemara presents other illustrations of something which begins in a kind of nebulous seed-like fashion, and then as things progress, it develops and broadens, like the seed itself, the gashmis. So, back to the Marash's hemshech. So the famous hemshech, Chav Chai Vodom, so explains there. So why is this called Shinyan Akitzur Matbeya Kotz V'derech Ktzora? This is all arich. This is all the mashal for the mind itself. So why are we using it's small, a small formula? It's derech ktzora. You should teach in a brief way, which implies we just said it's bligvul. We said it's bligvul. So why is it called ktzora? So he says, "Ein de bestira lakash nikra b'shem arich." Is not a stira to the fact that it's called arich, and arich means long without limit, bligvul ki, because what's the kitzur here? The kitzur is not the oir, not the gilui. The kitzur is mitzad kelim. The kelim are brief and sublimated and small to the oir, bottled to the oir. But the revelation, what is the Rav conveying in these few chosen words is tremendous gilui. But the kelim there are very brief. On the contrary, the keli has to be brief and bottle and small in order to be the vessel for this great oil. Shemeir al riba oil, arich conveys that the oil is very great. More detail now. We encountered this, friends. This is not new. Remember this? We learned this. I wish I could remember which Maimed. That would be nice, but I don't. Chaim gedenkst. Okay, try and think of it later. It was a couple of years ago, not recent. At least a year ago, 2 years. Maybe more. As explained in Biyur Azayah, the reason why sometimes Matzino, we find what appears to be on the surface a contradiction. Sometimes we find sometimes we find that the idea of degree of greatness is reference to above, and down here is small. Sometimes we find the language is the opposite. Up there it's mute, small. And down here it's multiplicit, and here is many, and here is great, and here is. So, what is it? Which way is it? Is it small there and large here, or is it large there and small here? The answer is depends what you're referring to. It depends what we speak of. Oir or keli, meaning haino shemitzad oires. If we're speaking about giloi. Obviously, and the higher we go, the greater God's revelation. But what does that mean? The greater as revelation, the smaller the recipient, the more bottled the recipient. As he goes on to say, umitzad, next page, hakelim. But if you're talking about kelim, in the lamata yoisa, the further down you go, the otherness, the keli, the recipient, his role, his position, his reality becomes more and more pronounced. Something's wrong with it? Sorry. I didn't copy it right. I'm missing a page or what? Huh?
It goes somewhere else. Yeah, it stops. It goes backwards. It's no ratio.
I'm missing. Is it missing a page?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll make it. I'll do it again. You're missing ratio Dalet. Yeah, it's one thing. Okay, we'll do it again. I was wondering, it's 2 pages. Yeah, you all have it on your phone, yeah. So please consult your phone. You know, the matter you said so by Keli main bit of when it comes to Keli, which means gvul, kayach gvul, which means the emergent presence of the receiver. So the further down you go, that's greater. Whereas the higher we go, Keli, the Makabel Kayach gvul, is smaller, submerged. Matbeya kotzer, hence, it Lamaila is Matbeya kotzer, a smaller formula. Hence, conclusion, Arich is what? Matbeya kotzer. Now, taking this further, 1 second, we have to stop. Could go a bit further. So what did we say? What's Matbeya Kotzer? Matbeya Kotzer begins with Baruch, but doesn't conclude with Baruch. So we have to understand that. We just before that Baruch means the Amshacher. Baruch is the Eibish's tzedakah, his kindness. So what does it mean that Arich begins with Baruch and doesn't end with Baruch? Why not? What happens here? So what's the Inyan here? What it means? It starts with Baruch in Yonda Peulas Habrocha V'Amshacha Lemata. So this brings it, right? We all know this. That Baruch comes from the word Berech, which means a knee. Doesn't come from the word. It's the same root. It's the same word. Berech and knee. Brecha is what, friends? What's Brecha? A what? A waterfall. And one more illustration. So this brings from a Masechta Kiloyim. Yeah, not grafting, but the havrich, to take the geffen and to put it into the ground, to drop a root. So it's considered a separate. Actually, it's also used grafting too. The havrich, even grafting, put one thing into the other. So what's common to all of these things is coming down. So bracha means drawing down. So bracha is pu'ula, sa bracha v'amshach lemata. Now, this is to explain why Arich is Pesach bebaruch b'veinach chaysim bebaruch. Kivim shebechinas Arich hanpin matbeya kotzer. So what's Arich hanpin? Arich hanpin we sit in matbeya kotzer. What we explained before, it's tipping. Well, mailim beklala seder shtal shalos. So Arich itself is hiding shtal shalos. What's the parallel of Arich and b'nefesh ha'adam? Anybody? Rotzen. Yeah, Arich and Atik are the 2 levels of Keser. So Atik is what? Pardon? Atik is, yeah. So Rotzen is higher than the Shtalshus of a person. A person's will is higher and far greater than the conscious faculties of intellect and emotion, as we learn at length. So Arich is higher than Shtalshus Lachein Tzorech Liyiz by Apsicha beBaruch. Therefore, it has to begin with Baruch. We've got to draw it down, otherwise it would remain completely removed from us, beyond our world. What's chaysim? What's sealing with? That's the Lashon Chazal, is opens with Baruch and chaysim seals with Baruch. So fascinating. You can make Lashon chaysim, shallah yigeres mibachutz. This is like a seal on the letter on the outside. As you know, the old, literally a wax seal was put closing the letter with a stamp in the seal. What's the point of the seal? That you can see if it was opened or not. When the person gets it, the seal is intact. It wasn't read, and that's the objective. That a foreigner who was not meant to see the content shouldn't read it. So what does this mean? Baruch Nicen Yoni, Baruch Nicen Yoni, V'tikmosi b'yin abrocha. So why do you need chaysim bebaruch? It's because shalei tumshech l'mokim ve'inyan bilti rotzi. We don't want that amshacha should come up to a place that's undesirable. Zeh gam shechaysim oisius chaymas tchum. The word chaysim, rearrange the letters, you get the word chaymas, wall, tchum, the boundary. Shesoigrim umagbilim es amshachas habrocha. The point of the concluding bracha is it closes and it limits the length, the amshach of the bracha. B'ofen she'ad pei tov hashpa. The hashpa comes till here. Leitagi leila hamtzem b'chutzin should not reach those who are outside the wall, which means klippe, outside the world of kedusha. So having said all of this, okay, I'm going to stop here. I'm going to stick to we want to start the Hoda 7:05. So today's story. Continue tomorrow. Okay?